So, is there something that God is asking you to release that you're holding tightly onto? Is it worth it? What if it's not a thing God is asking you to release or to change? What if it's an expectation or maybe a belief? Hey there. Are you a Christian woman who's ready to strengthen your faith and stop the madness in your mind? The worry, doubt, anxiety. Do you want something more for your life but are not sure where to even begin? You've come to the right place. Hi, I'm Kristin Campbell. I'm excited that you're here as we journey together to discover mindset renewal and empowered faith for the Christian woman. I'm sure you've heard it said that the only thing constant in life is change. Well, for a long time, I did not do well with change. And my stubbornness to accept the changes around me or even consider change in my own life proved really harmful in so many ways. I'm not sure exactly when this resistance to change began, but I definitely know it was early on in my life. I can remember being very distraught when my mom changed the wall phone in our kitchen. I was young, like maybe preteen, and it upset me on a whole nother level. Now, I realize some of you listening do not even know what a wall phone is, so I'm telling my age here, but listen, that phone, it was a part of our house. It was a part of my kitchen. It was part of my everyday life. So changing it threw me off. I didn't like it. I couldn't get used to it. I wanted that old phone back. I just missed it. And it was a struggle for me, this change, which, it seems insignificant now, but I believe it was around there that it just set me up to resist change in any form in my life. So, whenever change comes or whenever it came, I'm over it now, but I believed that something was missing, that something wasn't how it was supposed to be. And those are lies, and they caused me a lot of anxiety, frustration, anger. I just kept getting trapped, in a manner of speaking, because I wanted things to stay the same. I could handle them. It was familiar. There weren't any surprises. And, while the story about the phone, which is something that very few people even have in their homes anymore, I'm sure that many of you can relate to that feeling, right? To that resistance of change in life. And, maybe it's throwing off your expectations or your understanding of something, and it can consume you and cause you to lose focus, whether on the blessings within the change or the possibilities of where that change may bring you. So over the years, I've learned to hold loosely. And this is a phrase that a friend shared with me during a significant time of change in my life. And it just resonated so deeply. And I just go back to it time and time again. So I wanted to share it with you today. This concept of holding things in our life loosely is, I believe, biblical as well as practical. And it not only applies to physical possessions, but also to our own sense of control and our own expectations. So let's just break this down. We'll start with physical possessions. We very easily get attached to our things. I really got attached to that phone. I don't know. And I've also become attached to other random things, to dishes, to cars, to clothes, apartments, houses, jobs. You name it. And, it's not that we can't like these things or that we shouldn't desire to have these things. It's none of that. The issue comes in when the Lord is asking us to release them or to move on from them, and we resist that. And mostly it's out of fear. But at that point, we are really clinging more to the things than to what the Lord is doing in our life. And in Mark 10, there's a story of the rich man who approaches Jesus and asks, what can he do to really inherit eternal life? See, he had obeyed all the commandments. And so he was kind of wondering, what else can I do? And Jesus knew his heart, and he asked him to sell all that he had, give the proceeds to the poor, and then come and follow him. But the rich man, turns out he valued his possessions way more than he realized. He wasn't able to do it. He was unwilling to give his things away, to sell them. He held tightly to those possessions when Jesus was really calling him to a greater treasure. And, I've done this. I'm sure you have too. God nudges you to give, but you don't feel you have enough in the bank to spare. Or, there was a time I can remember where my husband began to talk to me about moving, and I dug my heels in. Oh my goodness. I liked my house. I liked my things. I liked my routines. And in all of that resistance to change, I was trying to control my environment. I was trying to control my life. And that change in my mind, that was going to ruin something, or it was going to leave me with less. I just didn't trust. So I held on tightly. But hey, life has a way of doing its own thing, and change came anyways. And I kept resisting, and it caused myself so much misery. It caused everyone around me misery as well. And I had to go back to hold loosely. Matthew 16:6 says, "For what good will it do a person if he gains the whole world but forfeits his soul?" So is there something that God is asking you to release that you're holding tightly onto? Is it worth it? What if it's not a thing God is asking you to release or to change? What if it's an expectation or maybe a belief? I want us to take a look at my sister Martha. I mean, obviously, we are not blood related. I mean, it would be cool if we were, but I really feel as though I could be her twin at times. Like, I get Martha. In Luke 10, you might as well put my name where hers is, because it's me. She is I, or she is who I used to be. So if you remember, I struggled for years trying to meet unrealistic expectations that I placed on myself, just about how things should be, so that I could somehow feel loved or accepted or worthy. And man, I would kill myself trying to get everything just right, so in some weird way I could be just right too. And I would stress myself and everyone around me out, just like Martha. And this is what she's doing in Luke 10. Jesus is coming to their house, and it says in verse 40, Martha is distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. And she came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister, Mary, has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." And I feel this. I relate to this. If there was any kind of gathering to happen at my house, I turned into an anxious, crazy tyrant. I would be frantic trying to get all my lists done, big lists, unrealistic lists. And I would get angry that others, whether they were roommates or my husband or my kids, that they just weren't doing enough or they weren't doing it right. And it caused so much stress. And the crazy thing is, all the time, I'd be beating myself up for not being more prepared. And I'd be worried about what everyone would think of me, because if anything went wrong, I somehow was a failure. It was awful. So I get Martha's heart here. I hear her priority. What was my priority was that the gathering would be perfect. And in, some way, maybe that could bring about a feeling of perfection within yourselves. And she's crying out, like, why isn't this important to everyone else? And Jesus replies in verse 41, Kristin, no, I'm just kidding. He says, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her." So what is Jesus telling me, telling Martha, telling all of us? It's that our focus can be on the wrong thing sometimes. We can get so caught up in how we want things to go in life We set a vision in our minds that we grasp onto so tightly that there's no room for God. And we can often miss the real gift that God is wanting to bring to us. Martha was missing Jesus' presence. Mary saw it and she made a better choice. And when we hold too tightly to how we want life to go, we can miss the treasures the Lord has planned for us. We can be blind to the joy unfolding before us. Proverbs 19:21 tells us, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." See, often the Lord will show us part of the vision, part of the destination, and then we try to fill in the map of how to get there. We begin to make decisions about the best ways to accomplish what the Lord has shown us. Yet very rarely is God's plan a straight line from point A to point B. More often than not, that line goes up and it goes down and it goes in circles and it goes off the page, which is why it's so important to hold loosely to our understanding and our plans. Because in all those, quote unquote detours, he has a purpose. There's a training, there's wisdom being developed, there are foundations that are being set, all these things that are necessary to fulfill the vision that he's given for your life. So can we surrender our plans to the Lord? Can we begin to loosen our grip on our own expectations? What is the Lord nudging you to hold loosely to? And I just want to remind you that surrendering your plans to the Lord, it may not always seem to work out for our best in the moment. And this is a tough message to hear in a world where doing what feels good equals doing the right thing. That's not how it works in the kingdom of God. There will be times that you surrender your plans and the thing you didn't want to happen is the exact thing that does. What then? Is God still good? Is God still able and faithful? Can you still find joy and hope in knowing he has a good plan that just hasn't been revealed to you yet? This is where the rubber meets the road. Can you trust God in the disappointment? Can you keep following his leading? Because change is not the only constant in life. God's faithfulness is also constant. His ways are higher than our ways. Hold loosely to your plans and allow his ways to guide your steps. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. I hope you walked away a little stronger in your faith and freer in your mind. You are so loved. If you like this episode, share it with a friend. Leave your ratings and reviews, and engage with me on social media. I'd love to hear from you.